So Kingdoms is a lot of information when you jump into it. There's so much going on. As you can see, the UI is different. There's a map. There's a lot of stuff going on. And that is really just information overload. So basically, my purpose of this video is to explain to somebody who has no hours or very little hours in Kingdoms, essentially just what's going on at a foundational level in this game mode, at a base game level. I'm not really going to talk about strategy too much. This is mostly just going to be about what's going on in a literal sense, and then so you can jump into it having at least kind of an idea what's going on, and then kind of figure out your strategy yourself. Another thing with Kingdoms is that sometimes you won't realize until 4, 5, 6 hours in that you maybe didn't set up your foundation in the same way, the foundation of the mode as far as like the ins and everything that go on. And you're making life a lot harder. So that's why I believe it's important to kind of have a little bit of an introduction to this game mode kind of before you get into it yourself. It's just so you try to waste as little time as possible making kind of like dumb mistakes. So if you don't know who I am, I stream on Twitch every day, twitch.tv/MarinerHawk. I have a little under 3,000 hours in Darkest Dungeon 2 in general. I believe I have like a little under 300 hours in Kingdoms. So I have a lot of hours in this game mode. But what I remember most is basically when I first started this, I had no idea what was going on because there's so much information. There is a tutorial that you can read that explains a lot of stuff to you, but it can be kind of a drag to just sit and read a tutorial over and over. You're welcome to check that out yourself, but hopefully my explanation here kind of doubles as a tutorial. So the purpose of Kingdoms is that you have this map overall right here, depending on what map you chose. There are 3 different maps. This is Last Stand, the one that's the furthest on the left. This is the one that they recommend that you start with. I would agree with this because without getting too much explanation into it, this one is some of the other maps are kind of more brutal. So that's why I would say even the smallest map, I would recommend not starting on that. Although you're more than welcome to. This one is just a little nicer in the layout of it and the way that it's set up. To stop you from getting into some really bad scenarios. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to go through and essentially finish a quest line. This first wave is the Beastmen. You're trying to go through. Usually it's like going to certain nodes or getting certain items, etc., etc. And you're going to be going through and you want to finish the quest line and defeat the Beastmen. So I'm going to start off by explaining just really what's on the screen in general. So right here we have this is day 1. So each turn basically is a day. Down here, it is a list of basically every day. It will keep track of essentially where you're at, so you'll be able to check. This first one right here, Escalation Surge, what that means is the enemies get more difficult. You can always scroll in the top right over here. This tells you what Escalation 1 is. Your heroes get more damage, more max health, etc. This line right here will be when you hit Escalation 2, and then this last one will be when you hit Escalation 3. So you can always check and see what the escalation kind of stats are. So as you can see with the UI, basically you choose these 4 heroes, whatever 4 heroes you want, you choose them at the crossroads. So everybody starts Wanderer, even all these heroes, everybody starts Wanderer, and they start with, depending on the settings you pick, either their first 5 starting abilities, or basically a pre-approved set from Red Hook of random starting 5 abilities, depending on what you go. If you're going the early difficulties, which hopefully you are, you're going to be starting with their first 5. You can unlock masteries and unlock skills and master the skills at ins. So you can buff ins in particular ways, which I'll get into. If you notice up here, you have 12 heroes. So if you have the Binding Blade DLC with Crusader and Duelist, and you have the Abomination DLC, in total, counting the Bounty Hunter, since he's in permanent in Kingdoms now, there's 15 heroes. Unless you're playing with custom settings, you start with 12. So how it works is you pick these 4, and then 8 of the next 11 are chosen randomly. So if you look up here kind of at this roster, you'll see that just based on pure randomness, I'm missing Flagellant, Leper, and Occultist. So depending on the 3 that you're missing, it can kind of suck. You can be missing out on healers, stress healers, etc. But you at least get to pick your first 4. So essentially how it works is you start with your 4 heroes right here. You play through them kind of similar to how you would have in Confessions. And then these other 8 are essentially pawns on the map. So as you see over here, this is where the Abomination is at. You can always click over here. It'll tell you exactly where they're at. So you can move these pawns at will. So maybe not at will, but you can move them 1 or 2 regions at a time. So you see right there, it says 1 region risk-free. So what it is you hold left click right there, at least if you're on PC, and you can have them move here with no penalty. If you can have them sprint and move 2. So I can have the Abomination move to any of these, kind of like XCOM. You can have them move to any of these blue squares. But if you have them move them more than 1 square at a time, they can get stress something called fatigue, which I'll get into later, and there's a chance of them getting a disease. So the idea is, although you don't have to do this, the idea is that you switch in, you can switch heroes out of your main 4 party, but they have to be at the particular inn that you are in. So you'll see this spotlight right here. This is where my party of 4 started, and the bounty hunters are here with me. So if I want to give him combat items, if I want to give him trinkets, if I want to give him mastery points, or if I want to switch him in, he has to be at the same inn or camp as us. So you'll see if I go to this screen right here, which is the normal kind of you recognize from Confessions, I can switch him in. So I can click on Plague Doctor, for example, and switch in like that if I want to do that. Again, they do have to be at the inn that you are at. So keep that in mind. So let's say if I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I want to meet up with the Abomination and I want to give him trinkets, or I want to switch him into my team or whatever, I can send him here and then I can have him meet here at this camp. What you are doing is you are going through, you'll see the regions right here. So if I go from this inn to this camp, or this inn to this inn, I have to go through the tangle. The regions are, I believe it's 60% the size of Confessions. So they're a little smaller, they're a little more bite size. It's a little better if you have like an hour, hour and a half. It gives you a little kind of better of a stopping point. Basically, you're going to want to move these, maybe not all of the heroes, but you're going to want to at least move a decent amount of the heroes around individually, just to get them, either to get them in like a kind of party of 4, or just to get them to a particular area if you want to do something. So as you're going through and you're doing the Confession kind of style regions, you have to defend from sieges. So that's what this is over here, where it says 4. You can click on this, it'll send you to a siege. How this is this means in 4 days, the Beastmen are going to attack this inn. There are essentially 3 different ways that you can defend these inns, either with your main party of 4. So even though this says 4, if I was to get there in 2 days, I would immediately fight that. So you can either do that with your main party of 4, some combination of 4 or less, obviously ideally 4 heroes, over here. So like in this particular example, you see I'm way over here, so it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. So I could get there if I wanted to, or what I can do is make some party. If I was to pick the 4 closest, what I could do is I could have the Abomination head here. You gotta send everybody this way, either the 4 best maybe of your your closest pawns or your closest heroes, or just the best, or just whoever it happens to be the closest, and I can have them meet there and they can defend against the siege. So keep in mind that if you are not doing with your main 4 party, this will attack in 4 days. What that means is even if I get the whole squad there in 2 days, it doesn't matter. It has to wait for the timer to run out in order for you to fight them. So the 3 ways is with your main party of 4, some combination of 4 heroes, the rest on the map, or with what's called the Peasant Militia. So the Peasant Militia are not NPCs, I guess, but they are characters essentially that you can upgrade an inn and defend it. With the Peasant Militia, you do play as these sieges. So the same thing. So if you, what this dash is right here is, it means there's currently no defenses. If there'll be a Roman numeral that says 1, 2, or 3, depending on if you've been to that inn and you've upgraded that inn to have actually Peasant Militia there. You will be able to defend that inn essentially without your actually main party of 4, your playable party of 4 being there. If you lose the fight, whether it be with your militia or whoever else, or nobody is at this inn in 4 days, you lose this inn. So what this number is over here is you can lose 4 inns on the 5th. With these settings in particular, the run is over. So you lose. So you do not want to lose inns for many reasons. Also, if you lose an inn, it has a chance of taking a positive work away from everybody on the roster, all 12 heroes, and it can add fatigue to them, which again I'll get into later, or add stress. So you don't want to be losing inns for multiple reasons. There are some times where you just can't get to an inn, and that'll happen, but in general, you don't want to be losing inns. Okay, so if you notice over here, I advanced a day. So you'll get, much like with DD1 with the town events, you'll get day events. So this one, for example, will say there'll be there's lore behind it, which, I mean, that stuff's kind of fun. It tells you the rest of kind of what's going on in the world. But this one says in the Tangled, champion enemies have an increased chance to appear. Increased quantity, of looted relics, baubles, and inn materials. So as you'll see, if you keep an eye on kind of like what's going on, you'll see the regions are very separated. So you see the Fetters over here, the Sprawls over here, Tangles over here, Shroud, the Fetters also over here. So you see they are kind of grouped together. There's a little bit of of method behind the madness, I guess. That's one thing that's worth considering. So what I want to show you is I want to show you the Jester. The Jester was right here. What I had him do is I had him sprint over here. So I had him do the 2 regions to show you what fatigue is. So you see this bar right here. So what fatigue is it lowers your max health. So you see right there it says -4 health from fatigue. So that means even though his base health is 29, he can only have 25 health with this fatigue. Now keep in mind, when you are going healing threshold, so like for the occultist, somebody has to be under 50%. It does not count your fatigue in that, meaning the fatigue will go off of basically, is he less than 50% based off of that 29 base health. I hope that makes sense. But what fatigue does is it lowers your max health. They cannot get any higher than that. So there have been some combat items like smelling salts, for example, will heal 5% fatigue. You'll have some in items, stitching kit, for example, will heal 10% fatigue, or you can have them rest at an inn or rest at a camp. So the idea behind fatigue is you can't, or you shouldn't at least, stay with the same 4 over the course of an entire campaign. The idea is, as I kind of mentioned earlier, that I would get to, like, okay, my Jester has fatigue. All right, let's switch him out with the Man-at-Arms, keep Jester at that inn or at that camp for a couple days, get a little bit of fatigue, and continue on. That's the idea. You do not have to do that, but keep in mind, it will, if you want to keep the same party of 4, you will spend a lot of resources in order to keep their fatigue hopefully kind of low. You can fix fatigue at hospitals for 8 baubles per 10%. You can upgrade an inn. Maybe that will be a hospital inn where you can do the same thing. You can clear fatigue there. Or as I said, either resting, combat items, or in items. So fatigue is something you're going to have to play with. It can get up to 50%, which means that they're at, 50% health no matter what. So like she would have 19 max health until you fix the fatigue. So again, it is smarter to be switching heroes in and out. So again, I go a couple regions. Your main party of 4 gets a random fatigue after every region of either 0%, 5%, 10%, 15, or 20. So the idea is maybe I go a couple regions. All right, my Plague Doctor's got 30% fatigue now, so she's hurting on max health. So I'd switch her out with Vestal, for example, or prioritize going to hospitals so that you could be able to fix her fatigue. But again, just the fatigue is the idea of you want to be resting heroes kind of every once in a while as much as you can. So again, you can either have them rest a day, like if I didn't move the Jester for a day, he would lose some fatigue and stress. If you want to do it with your main party of 4, you can actually pass a day. So this will skip it to the next turn, and then all heroes will heal either stress and health and fatigue, basically depending on. There are ways to upgrade inns basically that allow you to get better fatigue if you rest there a day, etc. But that's a way to go about it if your main party really is struggling with fatigue and you need to basically fix that in some way. Okay, so let's get into inn upgrades. So I don't want to get too much into this because it's a lot of information. You can kind of look at it yourself. But basically, every inn you can upgrade in some way. So this is a new currency in here called inn materials. So when I was talking earlier about a defending with a militia, for example, you can the upgrades are right here, and then it's level 1 militia, level 2 militia is right here, and then level 3 militia is right here. So basically, let's say you have enough inn materials to get to level 3 militia. So if you are in a scenario where you're way across the map and you have a siege at this particular inn, your level 3 militia will be able to defend it. You can actually if you send either 1, 2, or 3 of your heroes to that inn, they can defend it alongside the militia, which is kind of nice. The other ways of upgrading inns are these 4 right here: Provisioner, Mastery Trainer, Wainwright, and Physician, which I'll let you get into kind of yourself because I don't want to overwhelm with numbers. But the one thing to keep in mind is they're basic and advanced. So what that means of these 4, not counting the barracks where you upgrade the peasant militia, of these 4, you can only go into the advanced tree for 1. So if I was to go into the advanced tree, if I was to go down this line and choose better food, that would lock me out of doing any of these other 4 advanced trees. So essentially you have to specialize if you decide to do that at all. You can upgrade anything in the basic tree along any inn, but as soon as you get into an advanced tree, you can't go through that with either 4 of the other upgrades. Now barracks, if you notice, doesn't have that line. you can upgrade barracks as much as you want, basically, at every inn, and it doesn't lock you out of the other 4. Another thing worth mentioning is as you upgrade all the way this line here, you can choose what's called a capstone. So you see each one of these has their own capstone. What it does specifically with the barracks is it'll usually give you a little bit of buff. So it'll say the arbalisters and the fighters. So those are the peasant militia. Will start sieges with a combat item and indelible trinket. Let's say the Wainwright, for example. So you'll see it buff the adjacent regions. That's usually like pretty late down the game where you have kind of like a lot of inn materials. But it's something worth considering, basically like what those capstones are. So just a couple other things right here is you'll see this. What this is treasure. You can right click it and it'll tell you what the treasures are. The treasures are if you get to that particular inn within X amount of days, whatever that number is, you get that treasure. Keep in mind that's with your main party. So you see I can't even 1, 2, 3. I can't even get there. It doesn't count with your any of your other heroes. But if you're in a situation where maybe you don't have something to do for a minute, you can go over to that treasure and get that treasure. Sometimes you'll see a icon over some of these regions where you'll get extra inn materials or something. So let's say this is a better probably example. If I was to get to there, it would give me 24 relics, which can be really nice if you kind of don't have anything else going on. Each map has what's called the underground access. So on this map in particular, it's the cardinal direction. So you'll see right there, it'll be north, south, east, and west. You'll see it says right there, it says visit to unlock the underground network. So it's this northernmost inn, the southernmost inn, the westernmost inn, and the easternmost inn. And you see this one says underground access. What that means is if I have been to this inn before and I've unlocked it, I can actually fast travel between these 2 inns, but you have to go through either the sluice or the catacombs, which got buffed. The sluice got buffed recently, and the catacombs is pretty rough. So you do get to travel a lot of, potentially if there's a siege here and you're way up here, okay, well I can travel there and then do that. So that's really nice, but keep in mind it is a difficult. It is difficult to get through those sometimes. So it's something you have to weigh. So this is kind of what I was talking about with the regions. You see with the regions, this one's highlighted because of the day event. So as you see, if I right click it, it says the champion enemies have increased chance to appear, and then it gets the relics and baubles also. I believe that is pretty much everything. Another thing is relationships. So relationships, you look at the relationship page. Neutral does not have a percentage anymore. It usually has a 5% positive, 5% negative on in confessions, but on this it does not. Relationships last multiple days, so they last 5 days. So keep that in mind. If this gets from 10 down to 8, and you have it's a 20% chance of getting a negative relationship, that will last for 5 days. Now you can either just you can either just deal with it, or you can switch them out. Like if my grave robber is not so popular, I can switch her out with bounty hunter. You can do that, and then the relationships reset after the days. I think that's everything that I want to cover as far as like the intro into this. I hope you are walking away from this video at least feeling like you're kind of what's going on. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask in the comments. The beautiful thing about being a smaller YouTube channel is I can respond to every comment. Or you can stop by my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/marinerhawk, and ask questions in there. I also have a Discord if you would like to do that. You can join my Discord. All of that stuff is in the description. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a general understanding of Kingdoms. Kingdoms is a lot of fun, but it's just so much information in the very beginning. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.